Hi, everybody. Fellow Nashvillians, welcome to tonight's Community Safety Town Hall. The Community Safety Town Hall co-hosted this evening by the Metro Nashville Community Oversight Board and the Metro Human Relations Commission. My name is Mel Fowler-Green, and I am the director at the Metro Human Relations Commission. And I just have a couple of housekeeping matters before we get started with our town hall. First, to participate and give your statement in response to the question, what would you like to see in the next police chief or for public safety generally in your community, you can call into the town hall at 629-255-1907. We please ask that you keep your statements to 2 minutes. You're also able to leave a pre-recorded statement by calling 629-255-1906 at any time, or to give a written statement by going to there's a page on the Community Oversight Board at mnconnashville.com. You'll see this on the splash page. When you call in, please know that we're going to do a quick intake and put you into a queue. If you're listening online to the meeting while you're waiting to give your statement, please be sure to silence that online meeting before you go live on air to avoid feedback, audible feedback. Our host today may ask you clarifying questions, but will not likely otherwise engage in dialogue. And finally, if you are not able to get through tonight, first of all, we're sorry. And secondly, we would encourage you to use one of the alternative forms of participation or to try again on one of the other nights in which we are going to host community safety town halls. More information on those will be announced very shortly, and there will be some information on our next one at the end of this meeting. So without any further ado, I am honored to pass the mic, so to speak, over to our co-hosts, Ashley Davis, the chair of the Community Oversight Board, and Dr. Marissa Richmond of the Metro Human Relations Commission. First, we'll hear from Dr. Richmond.
Thank you, Mel. Thank you, everyone, for being here. Again, my name is Marissa Richmond. I am the chair of the Metro Nashville Human Relations Commission. The commission was chartered by the Metro Council in 1995. There was an earlier version created in the 1960s. It was shut down, but then reconstituted in 1995 to investigate discrimination and harassment in Metro government, specifically in the police department. Although our mission goes far beyond the police. And so there are 17 members of the commission from all segments of the community. We're the second largest commission, border commission in Metro Nashville. We oversee a 4-person staff led so capably by our executive director, Mel Fowler-Green, who you just heard from a second ago. I personally have served on the commission for 4 years now. I'm in my second 3-year term, and just a little over a month ago, I was elected chair of the commission by my colleagues. And so we're honored and pleased to work with our colleagues in the Community Oversight Board to look at this issue and to take your thoughts and your ideas and your feedback. And we will be collecting these. This meeting is being recorded. And as Mel said, we're also taking additional comments both online and on a special line set up that's available 24/7. This is the first of 4 community town hall meetings. The second one is a week from today on Monday, August 31st. And then we'll have 2 more after that, which we will announce specific dates and times shortly. So again, we thank you all for being here and being a part of this and giving us your thoughts and information and perspectives, which will be shared with the mayor's office as the mayor prepares to appoint a new police chief, and we'll see what direction Nashville wants to go with regard to community safety. It's my great pleasure to now introduce my co-host in tonight's meeting, the chair of the Community Oversight Board, Ashley Davis. Ashley.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Chairwoman Richmond. I greatly appreciate the kind introduction, and good evening, everyone. As I shared before, my name is Ashley Davis. I do serve as chair of the Community Oversight Board, also known as the COB. The basic tenets of the COB is the inclusive engagement of the Nashville community. And we know that inclusivity requires intentionality, the type that lives and breathes in ways that gives a voice to the voiceless and is not bound by the current construct of systems that have oppressed, marginalized communities for hundreds of years. The community forum that you're a part of tonight, and one that perhaps you're listening to on replay here, is co-hosted by the COB and MHRC, because there is no stronger intersection for change in this city than the space where the Community Oversight Board and the Metro Human Relations Commission comes together. This evening marks the first of 4 community forums, as Chairwoman Richmond just shared. And all of these forums are purposed with hearing from Nashville residents about their vision for the leader of our community's law enforcement officers. And let's not sugarcoat anything here. Our city is badly damaged in very critical spaces after years of chief of police leadership that did not always reflect that great aptitude and service of our MMPD. But now we have an opportunity for a new chief, a new leader to be appointed that will not lead reactively, but rather proactively in the community of Nashville, while also cultivating a culture within MMPD where excessive use of force is obliterated, where accountability for behavior and actions sits on everyone's desk, where diversity within the ranks of the force exists every single space that we can imagine, and covert and overt racist, sexist, and xenophobic behaviors are met with real and meaningful consequences as a means of also deterring future bad actors. Many people want to deter real dialogue that is unscripted and allows everyone's voice to be heard. But that's not a democracy. And creating an intentional space for people to be heard, even if those voices are different than your own, our opinion, then your own opinion or viewpoint is essential to the very fabric of our Nashville community. That's why we are gathered here in this virtual forum here today, and for these subsequent community forums as well. On behalf of the 11-member Community Oversight Board, the MNCO's Executive Director, Jill Fitchard, and her highly accomplished staff, I want to thank all of you for listening in, for extending your time and your patience to this important issue, and most importantly, for participating. We greatly appreciate it. At this point, we are now ready to take our first call.
All right, we have a caller on the line now.
Hello, my name is Melissa Campbell. I live in Nashville on the east side in Inglewood. My family bought the house that I live in 50 years ago. And I'm very much concerned about the police brutality. I am very much concerned about police not being held accountable. Years ago, I filed a complaint with the Internal Affairs about a particular incident. And as a result of my complaint, the investigation was done, and the officers were demoted instead of fired. So my claim was valid. It was put on Chief Surface's desk, and he let it sit there until the statute of limitations run, and then he moved to New Orleans. My second concern was all this other brutality across the country became known to all, and Nashville pretended to be exempt. Oh, not us. We're just, well, I happen to know about it. So when you all had meetings on Jefferson Street about protecting that, then I raised some more concerns. My 86-year-old mother gets stopped all the time in North Nashville because she drives a car that has factory tinted windows. 86-year-old. Now, when she's driving around, she's either doing one of several things. She goes to AARP meetings. She goes to Housekeeping Matters. She checks on her tenants in North Nashville. She does a whole lot of things, but she does not sell drugs. And yet, police continue to harass her because of the tinted windows, want to check her trunk, want to search her car, just because she's driving in North Nashville. I think that is unacceptable. Now, I voiced my concerns at that meeting, and nothing was done. And of course, police, the Nashville police, still pretend to be exempt. They're better than everyone else. Well, if you are better than everyone else, then show that. I think police need to be trained. Why are we hiring racist police? If you're afraid of black people, why are you in black neighborhoods? Why don't we have somebody in our neighborhood who's not afraid of us? Why are we targeting black people for little bitty teeny tiny things and giving white people a pass on a regular basis? A friend of mine tells me that his daughter got shot for drugs, meth. And the police officer called him on the phone. Sir, would you like to come here and give your daughter a talking to? Unheard of in the black community. Never happened. I think get beat up, locked up, and everything else before we even put out the facts. I say to my concerns, when I say to my concerns, instead of you all addressing my concerns, the police started monitoring my Facebook account. Next thing I know, I get a call from a judge. I'm a lawyer. Call from a judge saying the police need to breathe. Chief Anderson wants you to make a phone call. Call him. He knows about the post that on Facebook about your mother being harassed by the police. And he's really disappointed that a lawyer would be complaining about the police. So he wants you to call him.
Caller, you have 30 seconds left.
I would not call him because I don't trust the police. I'm not trust the police. I don't trust any police. When I'm in trouble, I don't want to call the police because I don't trust the police. So we need to have a force that we can depend on. We need to have a force that cares about people. We have a need a force that protects and serves everyone, not just a handful of white people. And we need to hire people who have a bigger mindset. You can't be hiring neo-Confederates that are stuck in a racist mindset and expect them to be fair to black people. That's all I have to say. Let's just do the right thing. Let's do the right thing. If we want to say that we held up as an example from the world, let's be an example. Let's not just talk about it. Let's be about it. And that's all I have to say. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Greatly appreciate your comments. We'll take the next caller.
Okay, so here we go.
All right, we have another caller on the line. Go ahead.
Yeah. Yes, my name is Rosalind Butler, and I'm at 1621 Branch Street in Nashville, Tennessee, 37216. And I'm calling in support of John Drake. I'm calling in support of John Drake because I like the way he handled the situation that happened in South Nashville. He handled it accurate, and I think he handled it fair. It didn't take 2 or 3 days to do so. So I feel like that this is a man with integrity and honesty, and I believe that he would be best for our next chief of police. And that's all the comments that I have.
Thank you, ma'am, very much. We'll take the next caller.
All right.
All right, next caller.
Hello. My name is Linda, and I am calling from the Antioch area. I would like to say that the next police chief for Nashville and Davidson County should be an African-American man. I think that's important for obvious reasons, but demographically, there are many, many African-Americans, if not more African-Americans in Davidson County than any other group, certainly in Nashville. And secondly, historically, to my knowledge, there's not been a black police officer, and I think that would solve the problem of the community feeling that they can trust the person at the top. I also think, just an extra added comment, that there should be more African American policemen, and that should be true across the country. Perhaps we wouldn't see as many of these killings by of black men by white police officers. So that's my comment.
Thank you very much. Before we move to the next caller here, I believe Chairwoman Richmond will guide us for the next three here. I just want to ask members of the public to please refrain from sharing personal information as it relates to your address. Certainly your name is absolutely appropriately to be used, but we would like to just protect your privacy. Thank you so much. And we'll take the next caller.
Yes, thank you, Chair Lady Davis. Next caller, please.
All right, the next caller is on the line.
Yes, my name is Ann Watkins, and I'm a resident of District 5, Nashville, and I would like to see the chief of police do what I'd like to see Officer Drake do. And before COVID, I attended as many COB meetings as I could, as Nashville has fought long and hard for a COB, and Chief Anderson refused to attend any of these meetings. Ms. Fitchard and Ashley Davis and all of the members have fought hard at their positions and with little or no respect. So whoever fills this seat needs to show all of the COB and CON members their due respect by attending these meetings and showing them the respect that is deserved, the same way they respect their position. That is not something that has happened since the formation of the Community Oversight Now and the Community Oversight Board. And that is my input for our next Chief of Police.
Thank you, Ms. Watkins, for that. Our next caller, please.
It'll be 1 minute before the next caller.
Okay, I'll just go ahead and so while we're waiting, I'll just make a note. We actually, Nashville did have one black police chief, Chief Turner, a few years ago. I can't remember exactly how long ago that was, but Nashville did have a black police chief. I'd just like to make that known for the record. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairwoman Richmond, and thank you. I was going to hold opportunity to note too that the COB will have its monthly meeting on Wednesday, and Interim Chief Drake will join us for that meeting as well.
All right, next caller is on the line.
Hello?
Yes, we can hear you. Go ahead, please.
I'm Sekou Franklin. I live in North Nashville, District 21. And in regards to a new chief, I think it's important to have an outside person, given all of that has happened in Metro Nashville in the last number of years. And an outside person should give strong consideration to supporting the COB's updated memorandum of understanding that is trying to negotiate with MNPD. Number one. Number two, a new police chief must commit to reorganizing from top to bottom the Office of Professional Accountability that is in charge of overseeing internal affairs and civil rights complaints. Without reorganizing the OPA, then there's still going to be major problems in MNPD. I think that a new police chief must also embrace expanded whistleblower protections to protect those law enforcement officials who do want to come forward and talk about discrimination and other matters that relate to police accountability. And I think the new police chief should support the policy review that was conducted by the COB regarding immigration and residents who are non-English speakers, particularly as it relates to immigration enforcement. So those are my comments, and I really appreciate the work that the COB has done.
All right, thank you, Mr. Franklin. Our next caller, please.
All right, the next caller is on the line. Go ahead.
Yes, my name is Greta McClain. I live in South Nashville 37211. I was just calling to say I think the next police chief definitely needs to abide by the citizens of Nashville wishes and allow COB to do their job. Try to put up roadblocks for them. I think actually COB needs to have expanded authority so that they can investigate anything, any complaints, whether they come from within or outside the department, such as all the complaints that are going public about discrimination, racism, sexual harassment, and sexual assault. I don't think it's reasonable to think that police should police themselves. That's what COB was made for, and that's what I think the first item of business the new chief should have is to make sure that the memorandum of understanding is adhered to and that they let COB do what they're supposed to do. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. McClain. We'll turn it back over to Chair Lady Davis.
Thank you, Dr. Richmond. I appreciate, just to share here, and I appreciate what the caller said earlier to clarify and to Chairwoman Richmond's point. Nashville has had a black chief of police, Chief Emmett Turner, was chief from 1996 to 2003. And also important to note his connection to the COB. He extended his service and served dutifully as the first, one of the first 11 members of the COB. Certainly takes nothing away from, however, the point that the community member was making about representation. But I also just want to ensure that we are sharing as much information in a full scope as we have here. Thanks. Also, just we're reaching a bit of a midway point here, just to pause and acknowledge and thank everyone for coming on early and often to share their voice here. With that, we are ready for our next caller.
We don't have anybody in the queue right now.
Perfect. That's perfectly fine. We can accept at this time. We can pause and share the space with Director Fowler Green for some of the emailed and pre-recorded statements.
Yes, thank you, Chair Davis. We have received some feedback, both written and pre-recorded, and I would like to share those with the listeners. We have a call from a gentleman named Dallas, who lives in North Inglewood, and his comment is, our city needs a chief of police dedicated to serving diverse communities of our city. The next chief of police for our city must work hand in hand with the Community Oversight Board to provide representation and parity for all communities in Nashville. The next chief must have a focus on reforming policy and procedure to intervene before escalation occurs. Doing so means our next chief must be accountable to the people of Nashville, must have a plan for racial justice within policing, and must hold themselves and all police accountable to de-escalation. The chief must also be open to the reallocation of large portions of the city budget into our social and community services so that policing is not the first response for mental health emergencies or petty misdemeanor disputes caused by lack of social services or mutual aid to provide for our citizens' needs. Our next chief needs to be strong enough to stand up for shifts of policy and enforcement so as to foster a mutually beneficial relationship with all communities. And thank you, Dallas, for your remarks. We have also a comment from Andrew in North Nashville. And Andrew says, policing is not the institution best equipped to keep a whole community or city safe. That is a challenging notion to popular conceptions of public safety, but one that we really need to reckon with if we want to truly create the world we all say we want. The institution of policing was created a few hundred years ago to keep powerful people and their property safe from Black and poor people. It evolved to encompass a supposed serve and protect mission, but it remains thoroughly entrenched in the purpose with which it was first created, which explains Jacques Clemens, Daniel Hambrick, George Floyd, and all the acts of criminalization that impact Black and poor folks in Nashville and around the country. Nashville and the world are waking up to these challenging truths. See what city governments in Austin, Minneapolis, and Los Angeles are doing to scale back their police departments, for example, and are figuring out new ways to define public safety. Nashville must do the same or continue to reap more pain and loss and inadequately conceived means of safety. There will be no peace until this happens. That's just how social change works. For that reason, the primary quality of a new chief of police should be a chief who is thoroughly committed to drastically shrinking the size and scope of policing in Nashville on a concrete timeline determined by the people of Nashville, and in shifting funds from MNPD to already existing and new services in Nashville that can take up the work that MNPD is not qualified to carry out anyway. For instance, non-police mental health street responders, violence interrupters, survivor-led restorative justice programs as alternative to traditional sentencing, as the group Common Justice does in New York City, and so on. All other qualities of the chief are insignificant if this quality is not met, not just in a word, but in detailed deed. This sentiment is not mine alone, but is shared by thousands who have been mobilized in the last few months across our city and the many more to come. And thank you very much, Andrew, for those words. I will hand the mic back to our co-hosts to take some more calls.
Great, thank you very much, Mr. Valentine. We will accept the next call.
Hello.
Hi, good evening.
Hi, good evening. How are you?
Doing well. We welcome your statement.
Well, I am calling from the Goodlettsville area, and I just wanted to call in and to talk about some of the things that I would like to see in the next police chief that is hired for Nashville. One, I would like for the police chief to engage with the Metro Community Oversight Board, considering that this was a board that majority of the people here in Nashville voted for. And so I would really like for the chief to be supportive of them and to engage with them on more of a regular basis than what the previous chief did. I would also like a chief that really understands what is going on in the community and someone who is really going to seek to root out systemic racism that is embedded within the Metro Nashville Police Department. and would like to see somebody that is going to, you know, not be afraid to address these issues and to talk about these issues, and someone that's really going to engage in the community as well, too. Like, we don't need a police chief that's just going to, you know, engage with us and bring kids ice cream and, you know, and sandwiches. Like, no, like, we need for, you know, the police chief to really be engaged in the community and to understand what the issues are and to work towards resolving those issues so that Black people can feel safe in their communities. Because right now we know that Black people do not feel safe in their communities and do not feel safe when it comes to interacting with the police. And so those are some of the things that I would like to see the police chief, some of the characteristics I would like for him to have and things that I would like for him to do.
Thank you so very much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Have a good evening. We have our next call.
We don't have any others in the queue right now.
Fantastic. Well, we can go back to the pre-recorded or submitted messages of Director Fowler-Green.
Great, thank you. We have a statement from Stephanie in Sylvan Park. And Stephanie says, the search and hiring process must have meaningful representation of the COB and its executive staff on the search committee and the hiring panel. As a good faith commitment to racial justice, all community advocates should refuse appointments to the search and hiring committees unless Mayor John Cooper guarantees COB representation. A new police chief must comply with the COB's updated memorandum of understanding that details its coordination with MNPD, which thus far has been undermined by Chief of Police Steve Anderson. Refusal to comply with the MOU undermines the vote of 134,135 people who approved the COB in 2018. In coordination with Metro Council and the COB, a new police chief must immediately develop procedures for using subpoena power in COB investigations. A new police chief must release reports by the Force Review Board considering the police killings of Jacquees Clemens, Daniel Hambrick, Timothy Lane, William Johnson, and others. These force review reports are secretly guarded by the police chief. A new police chief must restructure the Office of Professional Accountability, or OPA, that is charged with overseeing internal affairs and civil rights complaints. OPA has been corrupted by its director, Kathy Morante, who is actively undercutting COB investigations. While working for the district attorney in 2010, Morante also withheld evidence that led to a 19-year prison sentence for a 16-year-old. The sentence was later overturned because of Morante's misconduct. A new police chief must change the corrosive culture in MNPD, such as addressing sexual harassment, intimidation, and assault, updating employee health and wellness benefits, implementing a strong whistleblower policy, resolving employment discrimination complaints, supporting the expansion of mental health counselors, and tracking the hiring and promotion of Black women officers in the senior command structure. The police chief search must clarify whether non-English speakers and people living in over-policed communities have access to the online survey. It appears that homeowners and neighborhood associations are prioritized in the survey. These groups trend toward middle-class whites and exclude renters, formerly incarcerated persons, and others. The new police chief must endorse the COB policy recommendation on immigration and law enforcement actions. So thank you very much, Stephanie, for your comment.
Thank you, Director Fowler-Green. Do we have any new callers in the queue?
Not right now.
Not right now. Do we have any more email or phone comments that we can share?
We do have another written comment that we can share. This one is, you want me to go ahead?
Yes, please.
Okay, great.
Yes, please.
This is a comment from Blake, who lives in Donaldson. And he says, I am looking for a police chief that will prioritize transparency and structural change in the department. This is greatly needed internally and externally, as the botched raid and recent allegations of sexual assault and cover-up have shown us. We need leadership that will be honest with the public, meet with them directly, and take action to make deep structural change to the MNPD. One specific request is for the new chief to commit to honoring the new MOU from the COB and for him or her to meet regularly with the board. I'm hoping for a collaborative effort moving forward where the COB is elevated as a true force for accountability on behalf of the people. The new chief can set a healthy precedent for this moving forward. I'm also interested in a chief whose tactical focus is not on cultivating a warrior mindset or is militaristic. Police should not be seen or see themselves as an outside force, but rather a true part of the community. The new chief needs to take an integrative approach in bringing the community and the MNPD together. If not possible, the new chief needs to be willing to delegate certain activities to other agencies in the government that will be more community focused and more community centered. So thank you, Blake, for sharing those comments. Also have we do have a caller on the line, so I'm going to pass it over to our co-hosts.
Yes, please, caller. Go ahead. Thank you for being here.
Hello?
Yes, you're on the air. We can hear you. Go ahead.
Okay. My name is Bill Costello, and I live in East Nashville, Tennessee. And what I would like to recommend for the city of Nashville is a similar initiative that is being launched all across the country. Most of them are based upon a mental health response team that works in conjunction with the police based out of Eugene, Oregon. And they're called Cahoots. It is essentially a service that provides mental health professionals and people that can diagnose a person in a state of mental crisis. It, on average, saves the city of Eugene, Oregon about $8 million a year. The city of Eugene, Oregon has a population size of like less than 200,000, so I can only assume that it would save the city of Nashville much more. Come on, Abby. And basically what they do is they respond to non-criminal emergency calls. So if you get a call to a first responder of a person screaming in the middle of the street, rather than sending a police officer who is trained to designate that person as a threat, they send social workers and mental health professionals who can diagnose the person in a state of mental health crisis. Initiatives like that are being launched in cities like St. Petersburg, Florida, Oakland, California, Denver, Colorado, and I think that Nashville should be no exception. And when we start thinking about reimagining community safety and defunding the police and what the future of community safety looks like, I believe it'll look something similar to that. That's about all I got.
All right. Thank you, sir.
Chairwoman Richmond, if the caller is still on the line, can I just ask a clarifying question? Caller still on?
I'm sorry, go ahead. I'm sorry, I didn't catch that.
No, I was just asking if the caller is still on the line or if they've already hung up. I believe they may have. So we can do some research on our end. I was just interested in their organization there. But go right ahead.
Let's see. Actually, I think it's time to turn it back over to you.
Okay, not a problem at all. I believe that I'll look at but thanks to that caller there for sharing the name of that organization, and certainly the cost savings are even more impressive. We'd love to learn more. So we'll certainly look into what I believe the caller called Cahoots from out of Eugene, Oregon, to find out more as well. Thank you very much. Those examples are important. We have a caller, as I understand, so we'll go to the line.
We don't have anybody queued right now.
Okay, apologies. What I mean, we have a pre-recorded call to play. Director Fowler.
Yes, we do. And the technology has not been my friend today, so we're going to hope this works well. Here we go.
Yes, I'm calling and letting you know what I would like to see in the police chief. I would like to see accountability, transparency, and a partnership with the community and community organizations. I envision policing to be a cooperative relationship between the police department and the community and different community organizations. I think it's important that we choose a police chief who has already been established here in Nashville. The reason for that is that the person would already have a relationship with officers, a relationship with the community, and no issues in the community and issues in the police department are issues that are a concern, and they would not have to be starting from square one. Thank you for taking the time to talk to me. My name is Harold. I live in Bellevue. I'm a male, white, 40 years old.
Thank you very much, Dr. Pellegrini. To be able to play the second recording.
We have a caller on the line. Caller, go ahead.
Yep, that's fine. Let's go to the caller first, and then Director Pellegrini will come to you.
Hey, am I on?
Yes, you are. Good evening. Welcome. Sir, can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you. It's just not very clear. So this is Gil Costello again, calling from Nashville. The Genesis program that most cities like Denver and St. Petersburg, Florida, are kind of looking to as the blueprint is an organization called Cahoot, based out of Eugene, Oregon. Cahoot stands for Crisis Assistance Helping Out on the Street. And again, they're a team of mental health professionals that take non-criminal emergency calls that are usually designated towards the police, and they send out social workers and mental health professionals that can diagnose people in a state of mental crisis and offer them assistance.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Thank you for calling back in, too. Thank you.
No problem. Thank you.
Thank you. Director Pellegrini, we'll hand things back over to you.
Yes, and we have another recorded call, which I will play right now.
Hi there, my name is Corey Williams. I'm a 36-year-old white male who lives in Inglewood in East Nashville. Some things that are important to me as we go about finding a new police chief. I think that the Community Oversight Board should have meaningful representation on the search committee. Their input needs to be heard. That's point number one. I think point number two is that we need to work some kind of way to fix the Office of Professional Accountability. I don't think that it does a very good job of investigating internal affairs and civil rights complaints. And so I think that entire office needs to be sort of overhauled in some sort of meaningful way. And then the last thing that I would say, two. One is that we have to definitely find someone who's willing to address those sort of allegations of sexual intimidation, sexual harassment, assault that have come out recently in the news. And the last thing is that I am a mental health professional, and I would love to see the police department hire more mental health professionals, both for police officer use and for community outreach use. I don't think that police should be dispatched to every 911 call. I think that it's important for some people to have their first interaction with a first responder be a social worker or some sort of mental health provider. Okay, thank you for listening. Y'all have a good day. Hi there, my name is...
And so want to just check in with our sort of ground control. If we do not have any additional calls in the queue, I
believe we do. I think we have one call here, Director Fowler.
Okay, great. Thank you.
I don't think we have any calls in the queue.
Okay. All right. I was indicated otherwise. Okay. Then that's totally fine. Let's figure out on our end here if there is, just to make sure if someone's holding, we'll go to them most immediately. But if not, Director Fowler Green, we can certainly read those that were pre-recorded and share ahead of time.
That is what I have at this time. So I would recommend if you and Chair Richmond want to close out, and I know that we would hear some comments. We're going to hear some comments too from Director Jill Fitchard from the Community Oversight Board.
Yep, we have one call coming through that will be just one moment.
Okay, great. Thank you. And while we're waiting for this call, I do just want to encourage anybody who is listening to please go ahead and take this opportunity to make your statement. I sound like I'm, doing a telethon, but, operators are standing by and you'll be able to get right through. So I'm going to, continue to encourage you all to please come join the conversation.
All right, no new callers on the line. Go ahead.
Hey, my name is Elizabeth. I live in the Davidson part of Jolton. I was calling about one thing that I'd like to mention that I'm interested in for a new police chief, and that is some transparency and clarity around MNPD's relationship with the Fraternal Order of Police. I've kind of seen instances of nationwide where fraternal orders of police have kind of propped up and kind of dismissed any claims of police brutality or incorrect police examples of violence. And I think that there's some problematic measures in the way that system is set up and the way that fraternal orders of police have a lot of influence through the resources that they bring to police precincts. And so I basically would like to see a police chief who is dedicated to unraveling the MNP from the Nashville Order, Fraternal Order of Police. Thank you.
Thank you very much, callers.
And excuse me, Chair Davis, I believe we also have an additional recorded comment when you're ready.
Absolutely, feel free. Yes. And then I will extend it to Chairwoman Richmond there to close.
Hello, my name is Robert Day. I'm a 32-year-old Caucasian male. I was born here in Nashville at Baptist Hospital, and now I live in East Nashville, zip code 37207, top of East Trinity Line. And I'm grateful for the opportunity to use my voice here in my community. I want to second those who envision a future that has community policing rather than a police force. I do support investing in healing work and in care to meet needs, which I believe will help us avoid the problems that make people think that they need police assistance. I believe we can help each other and be proactive and address community needs at a root level so that problems and unrest do not turn into acts of crime and violence. Thank you, and have a wonderful day. I love Nashville.
Hello, my name is...
So I want to thank that caller and to say thank you. We love Nashville too. So we really appreciate you extending your voice here. And I believe we have a live caller on the line. So I will pass it to our co-host.
Okay, thank you.
All right, no callers on the line. Go ahead.
All right. This is Susan Hudson McBride. I live in the Old Hickory area. I'm very concerned that, for one, that the Community Oversight Board be given the respect due that citizens who voted for it meant for it to have. It needs to have a real voice. And the next police chief that we hire, I believe, there needs to be a lot of input from the COB, because that is a part of COB's job, is to monitor what the police department is doing. And the two things I think that are uppermost in my mind are, one, the information about the sexual assault that has come through. Initially it was 19, then it was 25, and now more have come forward saying they were involved with sexual assault or intimidation or harassment. And COB definitely needs to have more input in what's going on in the police department. I don't think there needs to be more hesitation from the police department or from the mayor to get the COB involved, because this is what we citizens voted for, and we're just going to keep having mess until that happens. And that's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. McBride, for that. We're just about out of time, but I'd like to remind everybody that this is simply the first of 4 such meetings. The next one is, again, coming up a week from tonight, Monday, August 31st. We'll get the other 2 announced shortly. Again, you can also leave a recorded statement at 629-255-1906, or again, you can submit a written statement at www.mnconashville.com. Chairwoman Davis, did you have any final comments before we then turn it over to your director, Ms. Pitchard, Director Pitchard?
Thank you. Just 2 comments. First, we just want to acknowledge that some people are experiencing issues this evening accessing the WebEx conference line. We will get all of this remedied ahead of the second installment of the community forum. Please continue to work with us, alongside us, and also continue to send feedback so that we can continue to improve the accessibility of this forum in these really, truly unprecedented times. Also, just want to be remiss if I didn't acknowledge that as a community as a whole, we are reeling from the news of yet another unarmed Black man being shot just yesterday in the state of Wisconsin. It adds even more purpose and readiness to what we're doing here tonight, which is saying that this work is meaningful, that we can and must expect better actions and accountability. And so please continue to dial in, send in your comments, No idea is too small, and dissenting opinions are welcomed here as well. Thank you so much for your time tonight. Let me extend here to our truly capable leader here, Executive Director Jill Fidget.
Good evening. I just wanted to thank the Nashville community for coming out today and supporting us. We heard from residents from Inglewood, North Nashville, Antioch, South Nashville, Goodlettsville, Joelton, East Nashville, Old Hickory, and I'm sure a few others that I may not have gotten the exact demographics, but we appreciate you all for voicing your concerns. And I think the common thread was changing the culture of policing, a cooperative relationship with the Community Oversight Board. The community is wanting transparency, and they want a chief who will address systemic issues and will implement harm reduction policies and protections. So I just wanted to say that I appreciate each person that took the time to call in or to send in a recorded message or to even write in an email. And I just want to reiterate that our upcoming town hall meetings will begin on August the 31st. It'll be the same time, 5 p.m. to 6:30. And the next meeting will be Community Forum number 2. We're hoping that the victims' rights, survivors of domestic violence or trafficking, and our mental health communities will come out, call us, and weigh in on what they want to see in a police chief. Thank you all. Thank the chairs, and thank our staff, and thank Executive Director Mel Fowler-Green for all being here and for all those that listened in as well. So have a good night. Thank you. And we look forward to hearing from you next Monday night.
And with that, we'll sign off.